Hi everyone, my name is Angela Hart. I'm a Communication, Culture, and Technology graduate student at Georgetown University. For my thesis project, I am seeking to examine if political film adaptations can affect voter knowledge. So I am looking at people ages 18 and up. Recount depicts the 2000 election, Bush versus Gore, and the tactics both campaigns utilized to try and get the votes counted or to have the recount process end to ensure the Bush victory. The Republicans want to say the election is over, whereas the Democrats want to try and see if the undervotes amount to Gore winning the Electoral College, because during the 2000 election, Al Gore won the popular vote, but he lost the Electoral College vote, giving Bush the presidency. Recount shows the process that lasted 36 days, from where the election night coverage is misleading due to exit polls, although the film doesn't necessarily discuss the exit poll issue, but the movie does show the flawed results, and then it does end with the Supreme Court case and how the characters are disheartened by the loss. I chose the film Recount because it shows both parties. It doesn't just show the Republicans, and it doesn't just show the Democrats. It goes back and forth between both camps, so the viewer sees the juxtaposition of both parties. That being said, the Democrats and their plight does come across as more sympathetic to the viewer, and Ron Klain is the protagonist. James Baker, leading the Republican camp, is not necessarily the antagonist, but he is portrayed as the one opposing Ron Klain, so he is the one providing a contrast or foil to him of sorts. I specifically selected Recount for a number of reasons. I'm fascinated by the fact that it has an amalgam of both real-life news footage and footage that was recreated by the directors and actors to mimic real footage. So they will have the CNN or the ABC pieces from election night or pieces from CNN integrated throughout the film so that the characters are watching the real news as it airs, and they'll also have the actor portrayal pieces mimicking the real-life news footage. For instance, Katherine Harris has the press conference, so rather than show the real-life Katherine Harris, Recount uses Laura Dern portraying Katherine Harris. Jay Roach will have a real scene that CNN actually aired during the recount process and jump to a fictitious scene or a dramatized scene with an actor portrayal of Katherine Harris or someone else from the recount process. I make note of this because I think it creates a different viewing experience so that it makes it more difficult to differentiate between the truth versus fictitious elements. So as a viewer, if you see the logo CNN, there's a sort of prestige and air of authenticity about it, whereas when you have a dramatized portrayal or an actor portrayal, you might not necessarily take everything with face value, or you might take things with a grain of salt. Having authentic footage mixed with fictionalized or dramatized accounts makes it probably more difficult for the viewer to differentiate between the two. So Recount gives the viewer the impression that they're watching a real documentary at times rather than a dramatized portrayal, and I find that interesting for my study. For my content analysis, I noted each instance of Recount using authentic and inauthentic footage. By including the authentic footage, Recount was given a timely quality, so the characters were receiving news in that instant, giving this element of suspense and intrigue. When Ron Klain and all of his Democratic lawyers are watching CNN and the breaking news, they then have to act in accordance with what they just viewed, and they have to come up with ideas in light of the new occurrences. It moves the narrative along in a nice manner. In the film, screenwriter Danny Strong masterfully compressed characters so that instead of having 100 Gore lawyers, you'll have about 8 that you have to follow. These 8 lawyers represent all of the individuals who actually worked on the case. So as a viewer, you might not necessarily know each person by name in regards to everybody who worked on it, but you will have a general sense of the day-to-day operations and all of the goals that they had to try and execute. I also want to note that Recount is a television movie made for HBO. Going to a movie theater versus watching a movie at home is a very different viewing experience. When you go to a movie theater, viewers tend to check their disbelief at the door, and they go into the theater accepting that they're watching a film, and they go in knowing they're going to be entertained. When you watch a film at home, it's a little bit more reminiscent of watching the news or watching a television show. And so, as I mentioned before, the amalgam of real-life news footage mixed in with the fictitious portrayals may be more difficult to differentiate. It creates a different viewing environment, and the different effects associated with going to a movie or watching a movie versus watching a television movie is very different, and that's something I hope to touch on in my study. HBO is also a very specific audience. These people are paying a subscription fee or are paying additional money so that they can have access to these premium channels, and so the content is also going to be more geared towards adults. Recount does have an R rating, and so the film is not exactly explicit, but it does have some swearing, and so this is more for adults. Taking into account my studies on voters, people 18 and up, this actually worked out rather well for me. HBO is also a more specific audience because people are spending money to have premium channels, so they either have a higher education because they have a disposable income, or they come from money, or they are still dependent watching their parents' channels or something. There's a different audience than it would be for watching just ABC or one of the given channels that comes with a regular package. Up until this point, there has not been an in-depth analysis of the film Recount. I have done all my research so I can guarantee that fact. I'm hoping my study will offer a bridge between big box office movies and smaller films such as those on HBO. If you have any questions about my study or want to learn more, please contact me down below and post a message or email me directly. I'd love to talk to you more about this process and my research. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. This is academic research, and so I'm really hoping that it will offer insight for people in regards to film studies and political science. So if that is something you're interested in, I look forward to hearing from you.